Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'm gonna give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kaha Kadash. Also want to give double honors to the elders, apostles of Great Millstone that rule well and teach well, and for giving us 100% truth. Also want to give peace and salutations to the hopeful elect. Now today lesson I was gonna get into, and Shalakia if kind of underneath the weather, but gotta get this work done. So really, this thing is really, I want to go into these the wild olive tree, but Spirit got me just to go start from 11, and we're probably gonna go from 11 to 24. All right, so we're gonna start at. All right, this is Romans 11:11. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? The Most High forbid, but rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy. So what it's saying is that it says, "Have they stumbled that they should fall?" That "they" is talking about the Jews that knew they were Jews. Okay, that grew up in the customs, that followed the law, statutes, and commandments. That was born in Jerusalem. They was keeping of the laws. So it says, "Have they stumbled that they should fall?" It's talking about the Jews that knew they were Jews. Okay, the Most High forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles for to provoke them to jealousy. Okay, so they fell. They stumbled out the Yahweh Shai, the knowledge of Yahweh Shai. Okay, just like now you got people stumbling on the doctrine of Yahweh Shai, stumbling on the name. It's just the same thing as going back then as now, right? But but rather through their fall, salvation has come to the Gentiles for to provoke them to jealousy. Now the Gentiles, this is talking about, it's talking about the Israelite foreigners. Okay, it's not talking about the other nations. Okay, it's talking about the Gentiles that were taking on the other customs of the other heathens. Okay, you had the Hellenized Gentiles that took on the ways of the Greeks, and you can get that history in the First Maccabees and the Apocrypha. It tells you about how the Gentiles were taking. You got ones that sold out that were taken apart and for forsaking the law, statutes, and commandments just to follow the ways of the heathen. Okay, so these Israelite Jews, stumbled on Yahweh Shai, but it was already said that he was going to be a stumbling block to those. Let's get that in Isaiah. Isaiah 8:14, and he shall be for a sanctuary. He talking about he's Yahweh Shai, but for a stone of stumbling and for a rock of offense to both the house of Israel, for a gin and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And many among them shall stumble and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken. Okay, just like the Israelite Jews that knew they were Jews, that didn't want to accept the knowledge of Yahweh Shai. They stumbled and fell. They fell. Okay, which opened the door for the Gentiles. The doors of mercy open for the Gentiles, which are the Israelite foreigners. All right. So let's get First Peter. Unto you, therefore, which believe he is precious, but unto them which be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallowed, and that stone is Yahweh Shai, okay, which the builders, okay, the ones that rejected him, the same as made the head of the corner, okay, because Yahweh Shai is that chief cornerstone. And a stone of stumbling, and a rock of offense, even to them which stumble at the word, being disobedient, whereunto also they were appointed to. So the ones that stumbled on Yahweh Shai, just like now, they were set up to be appointed to do that, to go off like that, for that to be a stumbling block to them. All right. So, so what happened was, they stumbled, they got jealous of the Israelite foreigners, you know, for Paul, because Paul was he was pretty much charged of the ministry of the uncircumcision, which is the Gentiles, and the other Jews got the Jews that knew they were Jews got jealous of that. Okay, let's get an example. Mark is showing how they stumbled on Yahweh Shai. This is Mark 15. We'll start right here, and this is Yahweh Shai before Pilate. We're gonna start at they were trying to get Yahweh Shai crucified. Start at we'll start 9. But Pilate answered them, saying, will ye that I release unto you the King of the Jews? For he knew that chief priests and the chief priests had delivered him for envy. So Pilate, he already knew that uh the reason why they were doing is out of envy and jealousy. Verse 11, but the chief priest moved the people that he should rather release Barabbas, excuse me if I don't pronounce that right, unto them. So they're willing to give up Yahweh Shai for this criminal right here. That's how backward our people is, man. And Pilate answered and said again unto them, what will ye then that I should do unto him who ye call the King of the Jews? And they cried out again, crucify him. And then Pilate said unto them, why? What evil have he done? And they cried out the more exceedingly crucify him. Okay, so this is an example why they fell. The Jews that knew they were Jews, the high priest and the Pharisees and Sadducees, but it wasn't all of the Pharisees and Pharisees, but it was a good amount of them. Okay, so now let's go back to Romans 11. Read this again. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? The Most High forbid, but rather through their fall, salvation has come unto the Gentiles, or to provoke them to jealousy. So the Heavenly Father, it was all a part of the Heavenly Father's will to do this, okay? To provoke the Jews that knew they were Jews to jealousy, okay? Now let's get Romans. Okay, this is Romans 10:19. But I say, did not Israel know? First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation I will anger you. Okay, so the Israelite Jews, the Israelites that knew they were Jews, looked at the Israelite foreigners like an old people. Okay, because they didn't get raised up in the customs. You know, as generations went by, their people when they sold out, their kids grew up in that custom, so that's all they knew. So the Israelites that knew they were Jews looked at them as a no people. So that's what that's talking about. All right, let's get Deuteronomy 32. This is Deuteronomy 32 and 20. We'll start at 20. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very forward generation, children of whom is no faith. So we know the Heavenly Father, He's a power that hides itself. Okay? Because we go off, verse 21. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not a power. Okay, all those false gods that the gods of other nations are no gods. That, you know, we started falling because we start following the customs of the other nation. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. Okay, so not a people is talking about the Israelite foreigners, you know, because that's just how the Jews that knew they were Jews, how they looked at the Israelite foreigners as not a people, because they were into all the other customs of the heathen. All right. So now let's go back to Romans. All right. All right. So for salvation is to come unto the Gentiles for to provoke them to jealousy. Okay. So how did he provoke them to jealousy? Okay. Um. So pretty much when the Israelite foreigners start to get the truth is when they started to get jealous. Okay. And I think we can get that in 13 and 45. Paul turns to the Gentiles. Acts 13 and 44. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of the Most High. But when the Jews saw the multitude, they were filled with envy. So when they saw the multitude, when they seen all these Gentiles, Israelite foreigners, they were filled with envy. Okay, so then we read that the Most High was going to provoke them to jealousy, to people that is no people. Okay, this is why. This is what he did, and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradiction and blasphemy. And then Acts 13:46, it says, Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said it was necessary that the word of the Most High should first have been spoken to you. Okay? So the word was supposed to be spoken to them, but they scoffed at it. Okay, they didn't want to accept the knowledge of Yahweh Shai. So like him. They didn't want to accept the knowledge of Yahweh Shai. But seeing you put it from you and judge yourself unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. Okay? So it was all part of the Heavenly Father's will for them to fall, to open up the doors of mercy to the Gentiles. Okay? So it was all set up. It was all of the will of the Most High for them to do this. Okay. So Yahweh Shai is a stumbling block to a lot of people. For so have the Lord commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, that thou should be for salvation unto the ends of the earth. All right, let's go back. Go to 12. Okay. Verse 12. Now, if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? Okay. So it's talking about now the fall of them. So who fell? Okay, the Israelite Jews that knew they were Jews fell because they stumbled out the knowledge of Yahweh Shai. Okay, now the fall of them, which is the Jews that knew they were Jews, be the riches of the world. Okay, what are the riches? The riches is the understanding, this knowledge and the mysteries of the scriptures, right? And in diminishing of them, the riches of the Gentiles. Okay, so now the Gentiles, the doors of mercy is open to the Gentiles. Now they get this knowledge and understanding. Okay, now let's jump down to 11:33. It says, "Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of the Most High! How searchable are His judgments and His ways past finding out." So, so it says, so the riches are His knowledge, His understanding. Okay, so now it's passed on to the Gentiles. So now, if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? Romans 11:13. For I speak to you Gentiles, the Israelite foreigners, and so much as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify my office. So this is Paul, magnifies his office because Paul was sent to the uncircumcision, which are the Gentiles. Okay, so let's get First Corinthians. This is First Corinthians 12:1. Now concerning spiritual gift, brethren, I will not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away into these dumb idols, even as you were led. Okay? So it's saying you know that ye were Gentiles carried away into these dumb idols as you were led. Okay? How did they become Gentiles? Okay, they came Gentiles because they were worshiping and they were taking the customs of the other nations, the heathens. They were Hellenized, okay? You had a lot of them sold out and voluntarily took on the other customs of the other nations. And that's what made them Gentiles. So that's what it says, you know that ye were Gentiles carried away into these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Okay. All right, let's go to Romans 11:14. If by any means I may provoke to immolation them which are my flesh, okay, which are the Israelites that knew they were Jews, and might save some of them. So pretty much Paul is saying like, um, maybe him preaching to the Gentiles, you might have some Israelite, the Jews that knew they were Jews. They might hopefully it might provoke them to how you say it, come pretty much join, pretty much bring them back. you know, because a lot of them didn't accept it. Romans 11:15. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, okay, the casting away of the Jews that didn't accept the knowledge of Yahushua, for the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but what shall the receiving of them be but life from death? Verse 16. For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy. So that first fruit is Yahweh Shai, because he's a first fruit, first spirit ever created. He holy, the lump is also holy. If the root be holy, so are the branches. Okay, if some of the branches be broken off, which some of the branches is talking about the Israelite, the Jews that knew they were Jews that didn't accept, this knowledge of Yahweh Shai. And now being a wild olive tree, now this wild olive tree, because you get some people saying that you get people saying that this is talking about the Gentiles of the other nations, okay? But you got and we're gonna get into this because the Heavenly Father only likened the nation of Israel as an olive tree. Okay, and we're gonna get scriptures to back that up in a minute. Okay? So it says being a wild olive tree were grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. Now, this is talking about the Israelite foreigners. Okay? So let's go into let's tackle showing that the Heavenly Father likened the nation of Israel as an olive tree. He's the only nation of people that he compared to an olive tree. Okay, let's get I think it's Jeremiah. Okay, this is Jeremiah 11:16. Yahweh called thy name a green olive tree. Okay, fair and of goodly fruit. With the noise of a great tumult, he had kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. Okay, for Yahweh host that planted thee have pronounced evil against thee for the evil of the house of Israel and the house of Judah, which they have done against themselves to provoke me to anger and offering incense to Baal. Okay, so this is talking about the nation of Israel. Okay, we are likened to a green olive tree. Okay, because the Heavenly Father, he talks in code. Okay, so it's not talking about the other nations. All right, now let's get Jeremiah. Let's go back to Romans real quick. Okay, so this wild olive tree is talking about the Israelite foreigners. Okay, what made them wild? So when they went into the other customs of the other nations and they started worshiping their gods, their idol worship, right? That's what made them wild. Okay, that's what made them wild. Okay, were grafted in among them, and if some branches of them be broken off, and thou being a wild olive tree, okay, because they went off, were grafted in among them because that's the other thing. You can't be grafted something. You can't be grafted in among something that you wasn't a part of. All right, and with them partakers of the root and fatness of the olive tree. Okay, because they were originally a part of that olive tree. They originally was part of that. Okay, now let's get Jeremiah. This is Jeremiah 2 and 20. We'll start at 21. 20. For old time I have broken thy yoke and burst thy bands, and now saidest, I will not transgress. When upon every high hill, under every green tree thou wanderest playing harlot. Yet I planted thee a noble vine, a holy right seed. How thou art they turned into a generate plant of a strange vine unto me? How did we turn to a generate plant or a strange vine? Okay, by playing the harlot. Okay, worshiping these other gods. That's how we turn to a generate plant. That's how it made us wild. Okay, that's what made the Israelite foreigners a wild olive tree. And if some of the we read this again, if some of the branches be broken off, which is the Jews that knew they were Jews, and now being a wild olive tree, the Israelite foreigners, the Gentiles that's being brought back to the fold, were grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. 18. Boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. All right, pretty much don't be proud. All right, because just like they fell away, you can fall away too. You can be broken off, back off. Verse 19. Thou wilt say then the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Okay, so the branches were broken off, and it was set up like that uh, to give Israelite foreigners mercy. Okay, verse 20. Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off. Okay, because they didn't believe in Yahweh Shai. Okay, so that opened the door for mercy for the Gentiles to come in. Okay, which was all set up from the Heavenly Father for this to happen. And thou standest by faith. Be not high minded, but fear. For if the Most High spare not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee. So just like the natural branches can fall off, he's saying that y'all can fall off too. Okay, so don't be high minded and proud. Okay, but therefore the goodness and severity of the Most High on them which fell, severity, but toward thee goodness, if thou continue in his goodness, otherwise thou should be cut off. It's telling Israel first, if you continue in his goodness, you will not be cut off. And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, they should be grafted in. So if the ones that do come out of that and start to believe, they can be grafted back in. For the Most High is able to graft them in again. Okay, verse 24. If thou were cut off of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? Okay, so I just wanted to go through this because, okay, it's not talking about when you hear the wild olive tree and being grafted in, it's not talking about these other nations, okay? Because we understand that the Heavenly Father is not dealing with these other nations. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Get a few, let's see. Psalms 147:19. He showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He had not dealt so with any nations, and as far for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh. So the Heavenly Father is not dealing with these other nations, okay? I don't know where y'all getting that from. Malachi 3 and 6, for I am Yahweh, I change not. Therefore you sons of Jacob are not consumed. Okay, so the Heavenly Father doesn't change. So y'all stop trying to add these heathen and these other nations into these promises. Okay, because this is not for them. Okay, this is only for the Israelites. Okay, and I hope this video was edifying. I want to say shalom.